Adrian Vale carried a silver peace pen on his collar. I remember that detail because it looked foolish on Astrian Moon, a place where peace was treated like a decorative word. He wore it anyway. He believed symbols mattered. He believed law could stand between cruelty and power. That belief ended in the Celestial Assembly Hall. The recording reached Orion Station at 3:17 a.m. Terra Standard Time. It arrived on a locked military feed, but the lock did not survive the hour. Someone released it across human space, and soon every colony, shipyard, academy, and mining dome was watching. Adrian stood in the center of a circular chamber, wrists chained above a black metal ring. Around him sat judges from 1,000 worlds. Some floated in glass tanks, some wore living armor. Some had faces hidden behind jeweled masks. None looked troubled. His crime was mercy. He had spoken for the captive species of the Varun Belt, where weaker beings were bred, sold, and worked until their bodies failed. The rulers there called it tradition. Adrian called it slavery. The assembly called it interference. A judge with 3 mouths declared that humanity was too young to question ancient order. Another said our compassion made us unstable. A third accused Adrian of insulting sacred law by naming suffering in public. Then they voted. No trial, no defense, no appeal. Only punishment. Adrian lifted his head as the floor brightened beneath him. He said he was a protected envoy. He reminded them that their own charter guarded diplomats from harm. His voice shook once, but he never begged. The blue flame rose. It climbed his suit, his hands, his face. The sound that came from him was not only pain, it was disbelief. He had trusted the room to remember its own laws. When the fire closed over him, the assembly applauded. That applause changed the course of human history. Terra protested. The assembly dismissed the message in 6 cold sentences. Our leaders requested an inquiry. They were told emotional species often confused discipline with injustice. I had met Adrian twice on Ravik, the red frontier world where I served. He thanked mechanics by name and listened to guards most officials ignored. Once, during a quiet inspection, he told me humanity would earn respect through patience. They burned patience with him. 48 hours later, Ravik Command went dark. Patrol fleets vanished from public maps. Old weapon stations activated beyond Mars. Buried files opened in systems older than my career. Then one order reached every human command node. Release Iron Dawn. No speech followed. No warning crossed the stars. When Terran destroyers appeared above Astrian Moon, we did not send a demand. We did not ask permission to grieve. We fired. Our first strike was meant to punish the killers, but beneath their holy moon, we found proof that Adrian was only the latest name in a much older crime.
The opening attack felt surgical, not glorious. From the bridge of the TSS Nightfall, I watched kinetic rods fall toward Astrian Moon in perfect silence. They carried no bright engine trail and no proud banner. They were simple pieces of human metal, guided by anger and mathematics. The first rod struck the northern relay tower. A white column snapped in half. Then the second tower vanished. Then the third. In less than a minute, the assembly's sacred communication web turned into drifting debris. Asterion had been designed to impress. Its cities curved around silver lakes. Its courts floated above gardens fed by artificial suns. Statues of ancient lawmakers lined the cliffs, each taller than a Terran launch tower. For centuries, the galaxy had bowed there. Now the statues watched us tear their sky apart. Lieutenant Mara Venn stood at weapons control. Her voice remained level, though her face had lost color. Judicial sector locked. Archive spires locked. Military nests locked. I looked at the execution hall marker glowing on the map. Fire second wave." The nightfall answered with a deep shudder. Below, defense ships finally rose from the moon's shadow. They looked beautiful, too beautiful for battle, with curved hulls and colored shields blooming like petals. Their commander opened a channel while targeting lasers searched for us. "Terran vessel, cease this unlawful assault. You stand before the authority of civilization." No one on my bridge replied. Civilization had cheered while a diplomat burned. Captain Elias Roan appeared on a side display. Behind him, his boarding squad waited inside drop pods, armor sealed, rifles quiet. "Surface window opens in 90 seconds, he said. "Primary objective is the execution chamber. Recover local records, check for hidden levels under the hull. Adrian sent a corrupted signal before his arrest, and it pointed down." Roan's jaw tightened. "If we meet the judges, restrain those who surrender, stop those who raise weapons, do not waste time on speeches." The pods launched. They pierced the atmosphere like black nails and hit the High Court District hard enough to crack marble avenues. Roan's helmet feed filled our screens. Smoke rolled through corridors. Officials scattered. Security guards tried to form a line and were broken in seconds. Then the team reached the platform. The burn mark was still there. So were the chains. For the first time since the operation began, Roan lowered his rifle, only slightly, only for a breath, but every human watching understood. Mara broke the silence. "Commander, I have a structure under the platform. It is shielded from standard scans." A vertical map appeared. A vertical lift dropped far below the court, deeper than any official blueprint allowed. Roan stepped onto the black ring. The floor opened. He looked into the darkness beneath the place where Adrian died. "We are descending." The feed flickered during the drop. Metal walls slid past his camera. The lift stopped with a soft chime, absurdly polite after so much death. The doors opened. Rows of black glass stretched into the dark. Human names covered every wall. Asterion was not merely an archive, it was a hidden archive of stolen humans, and the first name Roan recognized belonged to a ship lost before I was born.
Rowan did not speak for almost 10 seconds. His helmet light crossed the nearest wall, and the names reflected back like stars trapped in dark water. Some were individuals, others were entire crews. A few were written beside colony seals I had only seen in memorial museums. The TSS Morning Star, the New Lisbon Medical Convoy, the Ravik Children's Mission. Official records said one was lost in a plasma storm, another to reactor failure, and the last to pirate raiders near the outer lanes. Families had mourned empty coffins. Governments had closed investigations. History had filed them away as tragedies. Asterion had kept the real list. Mara enlarged the dates. "Commander, this begins 60 years ago." 60 years. Long before Adrian entered diplomacy. Long before I joined the fleet. Long before most of us believed the Assembly saw humanity as anything more than irritating newcomers. Rowan moved deeper. The corridor opened into a circular chamber with 12 empty seats arranged around a black pillar. Above it floated a silver eye inside a broken ring. He whispered, "What did they build here?" The chamber answered by lighting every surface. Recordings formed in the air. Human pilots strapped into machines, miners in cages, doctors forced to operate under alien supervision, children marked with numbers instead of names. The Assembly had not taken us at random. They had measured us. Pain tolerance, loyalty under stress, reaction to isolation, resistance to propaganda.
The files were cold, detailed, and patient. They were not studying how to defeat our fleets. They were studying how to break our society. Then Adrian appeared in the projection. He stood inside a small archive room, clothes torn, one cheek bruised, eyes burning with urgency. If this message reaches Terra, then I failed to leave Asterion alive. The bridge became painfully still. They have been taking humans from border routes for decades. Small groups, quiet targets, ships no one could recover fast enough. Their fear is not our weaponry. It is our ability to unite after disaster. His image shifted as alarms flashed behind him. I found a plan. They call it Iron Cage. It will divide the colonies, poison food networks, corrupt defense messages, and make Terra look responsible for every failure. Within 5 years, they expect us to collapse without a declared war. Mara whispered, "He found the knife before it touched us." Enemy signatures flooded the tactical board. Hundreds of loyalist ships entered the system, forming a sphere around the moon. Rowan drove a data spike into the pillar, starting extraction. Files rushed into our storage banks, prison records, vote logs, genetic reports, sabotage schedules, names of assembly officers assigned to human destabilization. Then the chamber spoke in a calm, artificial voice. "Unauthorized recovery detected. Burial sequence active." The ceiling seals began to close. Rowan did not leave the pillar. "Download at 88%. "Pull out," I ordered. 92. The doors fell lower. 97. A final clang cut off the feed for one awful second. When the image returned, Rowan and his squad were sealed underground. The evidence was almost ours, but the assembly chose to bury Rowan alive rather than let one human ship carry their secrets home.
"Mark Roan's position," I said. Mara looked up from her console. "There's a city district between us and him. Not a city, a lid." She understood, and the horror of it crossed her face. The high court above the archive was still crowded with assembly officials, guards, record keepers, and civilians who had ignored the evacuation alarms because they believed Asterion Moon could never fall. If we fired, people would die. If we waited, the evidence would be crushed with Roan's team. War loves choices like that. Enemy fire hammered the nightfall. Our shield display bled from blue to amber. Around us, Terran ships fought to keep the Loyalist fleet away from our exposed side, but the circle tightened by the minute. Roan's voice returned through static. "Airdropping. Cade is wounded. Archive machine still copying." "What percentage?" 99, but the pillar is fighting the spike." Mara found a narrow rescue angle. 3 low-yield rods could split the court foundation without striking the chamber directly. No promise it works. "Send them." She hesitated only long enough to breathe. The rods dropped. They cut through smoke and orbital debris, then punched into the sacred district with controlled violence. Marble plazas folded, golden bridges tore loose, the execution platform cracked and fell into a rising cloud of dust. For several seconds, Roan vanished from every channel. I felt the bridge waiting with me. Then his cough burst through the speaker. "You always rescue people like this?" "Only the stubborn ones. Can you move?" "Barely. Data secured." The scan showed a jagged shaft down to his level. Heat, falling stone, broken power cables, and unstable walls made it useless for normal extraction. Normal had no place left in this mission. "Launch an emergency pod," I ordered. "Strip armor plating and remote guide it through the fracture." Mara stared at the path.
That pod will have the manners of a brick. Good, bricks survive. The pod left our hangar half naked, its outer shell removed to fit the shaft. It plunged through the broken court, scraped both sides, spun twice, then disappeared below the dust layer. Asterian fighters turned toward it. The Nightfall's forward batteries were damaged, so Mara fired manually. Her first shot clipped a wing, her second scattered a formation, her third struck a fighter just before it launched a missile. Below, Roan dragged Cade and 2 injured soldiers into the pod. The hatch jammed. One of his team kicked it until it closed. The pod rose like a wounded bullet. It slammed into our hangar and carved a trench across the deck before stopping. A cheer broke through the bridge. I almost joined it. Then tactical screens filled with red. The Loyalists formed a blockade, Mara said. Jump engines are trapped in their gravity net. Roan arrived on the bridge carrying the black data core against his chest. He looked at the screen and said, "They know." Of course they knew. They had spent 60 years hiding the dead. Now, the dead were leaving. With the archive in our hands and no escape route ahead, Asterion Moon itself began to crack beneath us.
Asterion did not crumble from our bombardment. It was murdered by its own masters. Mara brought up the core scan, and the pattern was unmistakable. Deep charges had awakened under the moon's crust, placed long before we arrived. The assembly had prepared for this possibility. If anyone found the archive, the holy moon would become its tomb. Roan stood beside me, bruised, bleeding, and covered in black dust. The data core pulsed in his hand like a second heart. "They plan to erase the entire place," he said. "They plan to erase us first." The blockade tightened ahead. Behind us, Asterion's lakes boiled into vapor. White towers slid into glowing fault lines. The statues on the cliffs cracked at the knees and fell toward the burning city. Mara's voice cut through the alarms. "Gravity net is preventing jump. We have partial weapons, weak shields, and less than 7 minutes before the moon breaks." I opened a human fleet channel. "This is Commander Soren Hale aboard the Nightfall. We recovered evidence of human abductions, forced experiments, and a long-term plan against Terra. Adrian Vale died to expose it. We must get this core home." Static answered first, then one damaged voice. "TSS Ember Crown receives." Another followed from a fighter wing near the southern debris field. "Ravik Shield Wing receives." More came in. Freighters with welded guns, medical craft, patrol boats older than half their crews, a mining tug with a rail launcher strapped to its back. Every human vessel still alive turned toward the blockade. I did not give them a suicide order. The Ember Crown moved anyway. Its port side was burning, and one engine flickered like a dying candle. Still, it accelerated into the Loyalist line. Enemy plasma tore through its hull. It stayed on course. Asterion did not crumble from our bombardment. It was murdered by its own masters. Mara brought up the core scan, and the pattern was unmistakable. Deep charges had awakened under the moon's crust, placed long before we arrived. The assembly had prepared for this possibility. If anyone found the archive, the holy moon would become its tomb. Roan stood beside me, bruised, bleeding, and covered in black dust. The data core pulsed in his hand like a second heart. "They plan to erase the entire place," he said. "They plan to erase us first." The blockade tightened ahead. Behind us, Asterion's lakes boiled into vapor. White towers slid into glowing fault lines. The statues on the cliffs cracked at the knees and fell toward the burning city. Mara's voice cut through the alarms.
Gravity net is preventing jump. We have partial weapons, weak shields, and less than 7 minutes before the moon breaks. I opened a human fleet channel. This is Commander Soren Hale aboard the Nightfall. We recovered evidence of human abductions, forced experiments, and a long-term plan against Terra. Adrian Vale died to expose it. We must get this core home. Static answered first, then one damaged voice. TSS Ember Crown receives. Another followed from a fighter wing near the southern debris field. Ravik Shield Wing receives. More came in. Freighters with welded guns, medical craft, patrol boats older than half their crews, a mining tug with a rail launcher strapped to its back. Every human vessel still alive turned toward the blockade. I did not give them a suicide order. The Ember Crown moved anyway. Its port side was burning, and one engine flickered like a dying candle. Still, it accelerated into the Loyalist line. Enemy plasma tore through its hull. It stayed on course until it struck a cruiser broadside and opened a gap in the formation. The others followed. Some fired missiles, some dropped countermines. 2 frigates rammed shield projectors. A cargo hauler vented fuel, ignited it, and blinded half the enemy targeting grid. Signals disappeared from my display, one by one. Names became silence. The road widened. Mara shouted, "We have a corridor, narrow and closing." Full thrust. The Nightfall ran. The ship shook so hard the deck plates buckled. Enemy fire chased us through the opening. A beam sliced across our rear section and killed 2 engines. Roan grabbed the command rail with one hand and the data core with the other. Behind us, Asterion moon split open. White light swallowed every camera. The shockwave hit, slammed us sideways, and threw the bridge into emergency darkness. Mara used the last stable second to trigger the jump. Stars stretched, space folded. Then Terra appeared, blue and bright beyond the viewport. No one cheered this time. Too many ships had paid the toll. We reached home with the archive, but once humanity saw what had been carved under Asterion, grief became a weapon no leader could fully control. The Nightfall entered Terran orbit in pieces. One engine was dead, another coughed flame into vacuum. Our hull carried holes large enough for small craft to fly through. Escort ships guided us toward the defense ring while repair drones swarmed like silver insects. The data core reached deep command before I left the bridge. Within an hour, verification teams confirmed the files. By the second, copies moved to Ravik, Luna, Mars, Titan, Europa, and every major colony. By the third, the public already had them. No government could have contained that much sorrow. Human space watched the archive. Names filled city walls. Stolen children appeared in school feeds. Old ship disasters were reopened in front of families who had spent decades believing official reports. Parents learned their sons had not died in storms. Grandchildren discovered why grandparents never came home. Then Adrian's hidden message played. His voice was tired but steady. He warned that the assembly feared unity more than guns. He asked us not to turn on one another when the pressure came. That request did more than any war speech. For 1 full minute after the broadcast, Terra's largest cities went silent. Traffic stopped. Markets froze. No anthem played. No leader spoke. People simply stood beneath screens and read names. After silence came motion. Recruitment centers overflowed. Factory unions reopened old military lines. Retired officers reported without being summoned. Frontier pilots shared smuggling routes with official command. Rival colonies exchanged defense codes they had guarded like family secrets. The plan meant to divide us had welded us together. I was summoned beneath Geneva to the mountain complex known as Deep Command. President Lena Auric waited with admirals, ministers, colony delegates, and intelligence chiefs. Rowan came too, arm in a sling, face gray from blood loss. The Black Corps sat at the center of the table. An admiral spoke first. "We strike every system named in those records." A Martian delegate answered, "If we move blindly, we prove their propaganda correct." The room began to fracture into argument until Auric raised one hand. Then she looked at me. "You were at Asterion. What does revenge give us, Commander?" I wanted to say satisfaction. I wanted to say balance. Instead, Adrian's burned platform rose beside the black glass names. "A beginning," I said, "not a future." Rowan added, "Show the galaxy the files. Give the guilty one chance to surrender prisoners and records. If they refuse, then they choose the battlefield." Auric nodded slowly. That night, Terra sent the archive to every known civilization. The demand was precise. Return captives, release related documents, deliver those who authorized the crimes. 48 hours. The answer came in 9. A loyalist broadcast crossed open space. "Humans remain emotional animals. Animals must be controlled." President Auric closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, Iron Dawn changed from retaliation into war. Before the fleets could launch, a hidden file in Adrian's core revealed that the Assembly had built a weapon designed to make humanity destroy itself.
The war room turned into a storm of movement. Fleet routes appeared across the walls, supply officers redirected fuel convoys. Colony defense networks shifted to combat posture. Every screen carried urgency, but Adrian's core sat untouched in the center, blinking with a pattern none of our analysts had seen. Mara's voice came from the nightfall, where she was supervising repairs from a chair she refused to call a hospital bed. "Commander, the Corps just opened a sealed branch." The room quieted. A new file unfolded above the table. Subject Lucid 1. Coordinates followed, pointing beyond the Velkar Rift to a dead system called Narith Hollow. Then a medical profile appeared, and several people around me swore under their breath. Dr. Elian Cross. 22 years earlier, Cross had been Terra's leading designer of neural defense architecture. He vanished with the New Lisbon medical convoy. The official report blamed reactor collapse, but the archives showed capture, transfer, and long-term forced labor. His current status read, "alive." Barely. A second title replaced the first, Silent Crown Project. As the file opened, anger left the room, fear took its place. Silent Crown was not a bomb, plague, or invasion fleet. It was an intrusion system built from human neural codes. Once activated, it could enter our command networks through trust channels designed by Cross himself. Orbital guns would receive false orders, warships would misidentify allies, colonies would believe Terra had betrayed them. No outside army needed to break us. Our own machines would do it. President Auric leaned forward. Activation window? A timer appeared. 31 hours. We had given the guilty worlds 48. They intended to spend that time cutting our throat. Roan stared at Cross's image. "Can we destroy the station holding him?" Mara answered before I could. "Not safely. The file shows neural deadman links. If he dies, if power fails, or if separation is mishandled, Silent Crown releases." The admiral, who wanted immediate war, looked suddenly older. "Then our offensive is compromised before it begins." "No," I said, "it is delayed." Auric's eyes moved to me. "You know what I am about to ask.
Yes. Bring Cross back if possible. Stop the system if rescue fails. Prevent activation at any cost. Roan gave a humorless smile. Another impossible mission. Only because easy ones keep being taken, Mara said through the speaker. Hours later, the Nightfall left dry dock half repaired. Hull patches were still cooling. 2 gun decks remained sealed. Crew members slept in corridors because their quarters had no pressure. We crossed the Velkar Rift under silent running. Near its far edge, Mara caught a human signal buried inside alien static. It repeated once every 17 seconds. Do not come. I am the trigger. Elian Cross was alive, and he was warning us away. Nareth Hollow waited like a grave, and the prisoner we came to rescue had become the lock on humanity's execution.
Nareth Hollow had the atmosphere of a place the universe forgot. A weak red star pulsed at its center, throwing sickly light over broken moons and dust belts. Radiation storms crawled between rocks like slow lightning. There were no trade buoys, no mining claims, no distress markers. Even pirates had standards. The prison station floated near the inner debris field. It was not elegant like Asterion. It was built for secrecy. All black angles, armored ribs, and a central tower wrapped in cables. It looked less constructed than grown around a wound. The nightfall drifted in cold. Engines dimmed, external lights dead, weapons locked behind shielded ports. Nobody on the bridge spoke louder than necessary. Mara scanned the station. Layered mines, passive guns, signal traps, and a defense ring pretending to be scrap. Pretending well? Too well. Roan adjusted the seal on his armor. Where is Cross? One human life sign in the tower, weak but present. Before launch authorization, every screen flashed white. Adrian Cross appeared. Age had carved him down to bone and will. His hair was colorless. His eyes looked painfully awake, the eyes of a man who had been denied peace for decades. "Commander Hale," he said, "if Adrian's record sent you, listen without interrupting. I cannot be removed by force." Roan stepped closer to the display. "Explain." "They connected Silent Crown to my living neural pattern. Death triggers it. Power loss triggers it. Extraction without transfer triggers it." Mara whispered, "They made him part of the firing mechanism." Cross nodded faintly. "I designed shields to protect Terran minds from hostile code. The assembly turned that knowledge inside out. They used my memories as keys, my fear as training data, my guilt as pressure." His mouth trembled once. "I resisted until resistance became another thing they could study." No one offered comfort. Comfort would have been too small. "There is a lower neural vault. Reach it. Disconnect me while another stable mind holds the lock long enough to destroy the station." Taven, the youngest of Roan's team, swallowed hard. "What protects the vault?" Cross stared into the camera. "Copies." The word chilled the room. Human prisoners whose minds were recorded after death. Their bodies are artificial. Their emotions are accurate enough to break you. They will speak with familiar voices if Silent Crown has touched your files. Do not argue with them. Do not answer personal questions. Keep moving. Mara turned toward me. "This trap was built for people who care." "Then they designed it for humans."
The boarding team launched in a narrow tube. Roan went first. I followed with 6 soldiers and portable neural shields. The station let us dock. No alarms, no gunfire. That welcome felt worse. When the inner hatch opened, a voice drifted from the dark corridor. Soren. Adrian Vale stepped into the light. The first defense inside Nareth wore a dead friend's face, and it knew the exact words that could slow a human trigger finger.
The figure in the corridor was almost perfect. Adrian's height, Adrian's voice, Adrian's calm sadness. Yet the skin was too smooth, the eyes too bright, and the smile empty at the edges. It was a memory wearing manufactured flesh. "Why did you let them finish?" it asked. Roan raised his rifle. "No engagement unless it blocks the path." The copy ignored him and looked at me. "You heard me scream." My hand tightened around my weapon. I knew the truth. This was not the diplomat who thanked guards on Ravik. It was a defensive shell built from stolen recordings and my own guilt. Knowledge helped. It did not make the voice easier to hear. Taven shifted beside me. The false Adrian turned toward him with awful gentleness. "Your brother was on the children's mission. He stayed brave for 6 minutes." Taven stopped breathing. That was the corridor's real weapon. Not steel. Recognition. Roan fired before the copy could continue. The body cracked against the wall, skin splitting to reveal pale ceramic ribs and twitching wire. Then doors opened along both sides of the hall. More figures stepped out. A doctor in a torn medical coat, a miner with frost burns on his cheeks, a little girl holding a broken toy, a pilot with half his face rebuilt from glass. Their mouths moved before their feet did. "Tell my wife I waited. Please do not leave me here. I can still feel the dark. Why did Terra stop searching?" The voices tangled together until the corridor felt smaller than a coffin. We advanced. Roan kept the pace brutal. Mara guided us from the ship, cutting doors, marking routes, warning about signal spikes. We fired when a copy touched a soldier, blocked a passage, or tried to remove a neural shield. Each shot left a body shaped like someone's missing loved one. Taven fired last and shook hardest. At the lift, a copied child grabbed his sleeve. "I know your name," she whispered. He froze. I pulled him free, and Roan sealed the doors before the copies reached us. The lift dropped. For several seconds, only our breathing filled the space. Nobody looked at anyone else. Cross arrived through the station channel. "Silent Crown has sampled your stress responses. From now on, it will refine the faces." Mara cut in, strained but controlled. "Commander, something is testing the Nightfall's outer network. I have sealed non-essential systems, but it adapts every time I block it." "Keep it blind." "I can keep it irritated." The lift slowed. A pressure built behind my eyes, like a thought trying to enter before I invited it. The doors opened onto the neural vault. Glass rings turned in the air. Black cables hung from the ceiling. Memory lights moved through the chamber in streams of gold and blue. At the center, Dr. Cross hung inside a tower of wires. His eyes opened. "Too late," he whispered. We reached the vault before Silent Crown reached Terra, but the weapon had already started waking through the man we came to save.
The vault sealed itself behind us. No dramatic alarm followed.
No shouting countdown, just a heavy mechanical closure and the soft turning of glass rings overhead. That quiet made the room feel alive. Elian Cross hung inside the central tower, suspended by cables that entered his arms, spine, and skull. His body looked fragile enough to break under its own breath. His eyes, however, remained sharp. "Do not step into the inner circle," he said. Roan scanned the chamber. "Where is the release system?" Cross gave a tired laugh. "You are standing inside it." The neural vault was not a control room. It was a body for Silent Crown. The rings carried memory fragments. The floor conducted thought patterns. The cables fed Cross's mind into a weapon that understood human command networks better than any alien ever could. Mara's voice burst through static. "Station doors locked. Something just touched the nightfall again. This time it used a maintenance handshake from our own fleet codes. Can you block it?" "Not forever." The lights shifted from gold to white. A pressure entered my head, careful and cold. It did not show me fire or screaming, not yet. It showed order. Terra's defense grid perfectly aligned, fleet channels obedient, colony satellites waiting for commands. Then every green marker turned red. Our own systems were ready to become enemies. Cross gasped. "It is nearing activation. The Loyalists must have sent a remote wake signal." Roan moved toward the tower. "Tell us how to cut you loose." "You cannot leave the lock empty. Silent Crown needs a living mind to hold its release pattern. I have contained it for 22 years by staying connected. If I am removed, another stable neural structure must replace mine until the charges destroy this station." Nobody asked what that meant. Tavin stared at the floor. Roan said, "There has to be another method." "There was," Cross replied. "They burned it out of me." Mara's voice rose. "Commander, I have maybe 10 minutes before it reaches a relay path to Terran defense channels. 10 minutes before our own guns might turn toward home." I stepped forward. Roan caught my arm. "No!" Cross looked horrified. "Commander, the transfer will expose every memory you have. It will use them against you." "I have already seen enough ghosts today." Roan's grip tightened. "Soren, this is not command responsibility. This is death." "Maybe, but Elian has held the door for 2 decades. I can hold it for 10 minutes. For once, Roan had no order to give me. I crossed the inner circle. The cables moved like black snakes. They wrapped my wrists, throat, and temples. The first surge took my knees. The second stole the room. The third opened a door inside my mind that should never have existed. Elian screamed as the system released him. Silent Crown entered me. It chose Adrian's face for the battlefield. Inside the weapon, every memory became a trap, and the only way to beat it was to remember what Adrian truly died protecting.
Silent Crown did not feel electronic. It felt personal. I stood in a place built from memories, yet none of it stayed still. Ravik's red dust became the marble floor of Asterion. The Nightfall's bridge stretched into a hospital corridor. The black glass names rose around me like trees. Then Adrian appeared. Not burned, not afraid, whole, calm, and unbearably familiar. "You came far," he said. I knew it was a mask, but my heart still wanted to answer. The copy walked beside me as images opened in the air.
Human ships ramming the blockade, Rowan bleeding in the archive, Taven shooting a machine shaped like a child, families watching names appear on public screens. "You call this unity?" it asked. "It is grief wearing armor." The weapon had learned subtlety. It did not shout, it did not threaten. It offered surrender, as if surrender were wisdom. "Let Terra fall apart," it said. "At least the pain ends." No. The word felt small. Silent Crown widened the scene. Now I saw possible futures, orbital guns firing on human cities, Mars blaming Terra, Luna cutting oxygen shipments, Ravik declaring independence while assembly fleets watched from a safe distance. Every fracture they wanted, delivered through our own trusted systems. The false Adrian touched one black glass name. Humans break, that is the lesson. A different memory answered before I could. The real Adrian bruised inside the archive, speaking into a hidden recorder. They fear our ability to unite after disaster. Not revenge, not conquest, unity. That word steadied the world around me. Outside the mind space, sound returned in fragments. Mara counting seconds, Rowan dragging Cross away from the tower, Taven planting charges with shaking hands, the wounded being pulled toward the boarding tube. Silent Crown pressed against my thoughts, searching for a command path to Terra. I closed around it. The copy's face tightened. "You cannot hold me. I do not need forever. You will die unnamed. No. I carry too many names for that." In the vault, Rowan tried to rip the cables from my body. I felt his hands through layers of pain. If he freed me too early, the weapon would release. If he stayed, the station would take him with me. I used Silent Crown's own interface to drop a glass barrier between us. Rowan slammed his fist against it. His mouth formed my name. I gave him the only order left. Go. He did not hear the word, but he understood the face. The boarding team escaped with Cross. Mara detached the Nightfall and burned every engine to clear the blast radius. Taven's charges reached final count. The false Adrian cracked from forehead to chin. "You saved one day." I thought of Terra under a living sky. One day is enough to begin again. White light filled the vault. Nareth prison died with Silent Crown trapped inside it, but survival would not feel like victory when I woke to the cost.
For a moment, Nareth Hollow gained a sunrise. The prison station folded into white fire. Its black tower vanished first, then the defense rings, then the mines hidden among the debris. Silent Crown screamed across every channel it had touched, not in words, but in broken signals and collapsing code. The Nightfall escaped with seconds to spare. I did not. At least that is what the first report said. 3 months later, I opened my eyes in a medical room on Terra. My body felt distant. My voice did not work for 2 days. Memories returned out of order. Rowan behind glass, Adrian's false smile, Cross falling free, names shining under a stereo. The doctors said pieces of Silent Crown had burned through my neural pathways before the explosion severed the link. I would live. I would heal slowly. Some echoes might remain. Rowan visited before I could walk. He sat beside the bed and said nothing for a long time. Finally, he placed Adrian's silver peace pin on the table. "Found it in the archive debris," he said. That was the first time I cried.
Elian Cross survived too, weak, haunted, but alive. He spent his remaining years closing every access route the Assembly had built into Terran systems. He never fully forgave himself for what they forced him to create. Humanity forgave him anyway. Mara became captain of the rebuilt Nightfall. She had one line engraved near the command rail, hidden only where bridge crew could see it. Stay united. The war did not end in one clean victory. Real endings rarely work that way. Some guilty worlds surrendered records, some denied involvement until evidence broke them. A few returned prisoners who had been hidden so long they no longer knew the current year. Trials followed, treaties collapsed, borders changed. The Celestial Assembly lost its sacred authority, not because humans destroyed every enemy, but because the galaxy saw what had been protected behind golden law. Terra did not become cruel. That mattered. We strengthened defenses, rescued the missing, buried the dead, and taught the archive names in schools. Ravik, Luna, Mars, Europa, Titan, and Earth each built memorial walls of black glass, not to copy Asterion, but to reclaim what had been stolen. Adrian Vale was honored on 5 worlds, not as a war cry, as a warning. Years later, I stood on Ravik, beneath a clean evening sky. Children placed small lights beside the memorial. One asked her mother why Adrian was remembered. The woman answered, because he told the truth when silence would have saved him. That was the ending he deserved. No chains, no fire, no crowd cheering at pain. Only a name carried gently by the people he tried to protect. Humanity still speaks softly when peace is possible. We still trade, build, learn, forgive, and reach for the stars with open hands. But now the galaxy understands the line. Harm one voice of peace, and you will hear from every human who still believes in justice. Humanity does not seek war, but it will cross fire, darkness, and memory itself before it leaves its people behind. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.